Hi guys, this is Brad Lincoln with Pathway to Oz with another one of Brad's Quick Bits. Okay, today I'm going to have a chat to you and give you a bit of a rundown on IELTS, or better known as the International English Language Testing System. So what is IELTS? IELTS is a test that is recognised all over the world by not only institutions but governments as the standard of someone's English language ability. Okay, the test is made up of four main components, and that is reading, writing, speaking, and listening. You will be tested in all four of these components, which will then contribute to your overall score. Now, you will get a band score for each individual module, which will show you where you're lacking if you are lacking in any element of the IELTS test. Best thing about IELTS is it can be done anywhere in the world. You mean just about every university, and there are also private test centres offer an IELTS test. So you can get this done at a location generally pretty close to where you're located. What is the difference between general and academic IELTS? Okay, pretty simple, it's in the names. The main difference are generally in the reading and writing modules of the IELTS test, where those reading and writing modules are more academically focused in the academic test, and in the general test, more focused on communication and understanding. You'll find that most higher education institutes will only accept academic IELTS, and with, vocational study, a lot of schools will offer the ability for you to provide a general IELTS test. However, we are starting to notice a trend where more institutions at a vocational level are asking for academic IELTS. So in my opinion, if you are looking to do this for study or seeking admission into any form of study, I would recommend doing the academic IELTS so you don't waste your time by doing a test that you're not going to get recognition for. And of course, always speak to someone in the know who can clue you up on those entry requirements to make sure you don't take the wrong IELTS test. Who needs IELTS? Now basically, if you're from a non-English speaking country, you are going to need to prove your English language ability for admission or migration purposes. Now, when talking admissions, you may have some options to get around doing the IELTS test, which I'll discuss further. But in my opinion, the simplest and easiest way to prove your English level if you're from a non-English speaking country is by sitting the IELTS test. Now, this is a question I get asked, maybe every day. Do I have to do the IELTS test? Now, as I mentioned before, the easiest way to prove your English ability is by sitting the IELTS test. Okay, it's showing exactly where you're at. It's a recognized test, recognized by every institution, government, all over the world. It's a very simple way to do it. However, there are options sometimes, depending on where you're from and what you've done in the past, to get around doing the IELTS test. Now, this can be done by showing proof of previous studies. So maybe in your home country, you did an English class through your senior or high school, or you might have studied a diploma or certificate in English. We may be able to use these to get approval to waive the IELTS requirement. Now, some schools also do offer an in-house English test where they may set you up with an online portal or shoot you out a test, or you possibly even go into their school and sit an English test, which will then be marked by their English faculty. Now, that will then show them your English language level, and you may be able to then waive that requirement. However, this isn't available all the time, and this isn't available to everyone. So not trying to repeat myself, but IELTS still is the easiest way to go when trying to meet that English language requirement. Guys, so I'm going to run through some common scores that you may want to familiarize yourself with, because you are going to see these type of things pop up, and it's good to know what direction, if you are planning to take the IELTS test, where you need to be headed. Okay, so if you're looking at vocational study programs, on average, the overall band score is 5.5 with nothing lower than a 5. Okay, that's what you want to be aiming for. If you're going for higher education, you're going to be looking at a 6 to 6.5 with no band lower than a 5.5. Now remember, a band is those individual modules, reading, writing, listening, and speaking, that you will get an individual score on. Now, another handy bit of info to remember is medical and health style courses. Okay, these are always, because of the nature of the language used in these programs and the seriousness of dealing with the general public in practical scenarios while doing your study, you need to have an extremely good IELTS and English language ability. Okay, so at a minimum, for anything medically related, you're gonna be needing to aim for 7s with nothing lower than a 7. Now, again, this can vary depending on the institution and what it is you're wanting to study. Requirements could be higher than this, okay? So always, speak to someone in the know, as I said, and do your research on the entry requirements, because there is no point in doing these tests if you're doing it in the wrong format or you haven't prepared enough for these type of scores. What if I don't get the IELTS score that I need? Okay, if you don't get the IELTS score that you need, it's not the end of the world. There's a couple of different options you have to sort of reevaluate your situation. Now, number one, there's no limit to how many times you do the IELTS test. It's quite common that students or applicants get a bit nervous when going into their first IELTS exam. And nerves can throw even the best student off. So you may not get the score that you know you can achieve. So resit it again. You're gonna go in prepared. You're gonna go in knowing what you're up against. And I think you'll find yourself a lot more comfortable the second time you do your test. Okay, number 2. If resitting the test is not an option because your score is just too low, what you can do if you are using this for admission is package your course with English language study. Okay, so to give you an idea, for every 0.5 you need to move up in IELTS, on average, that is about 10 weeks of general English study. Of course, this is an average. Every student learns differently, and 10 weeks may not be applicable to you, but that's just the rule of thumb that we work off. So you can then package your English with your future program. So you're preparing yourself and then transitioning straight in without then having to sit that IELTS exam again. And number 3, this one is not to be underestimated by any stretch of the means: private IELTS tutoring. Okay, a quick Google and YouTube search will show you just how many IELTS tutors there are out there. And they're not going to just tutor you in your English language ability, they're going to tutor you towards the test, which I can't stress how important it is. If you've never sat an IELTS exam before, I strongly recommend doing the practice exams online and spending a bit of time with an IELTS tutor, just so you're not going in with those nerves. Because as I said in the first section, you know what I mean? Nerves can even throw off even the best student, and you don't want to be nervous, make a silly mistake, and have that dramatically affect your IELTS score. So guys, as always, I hope that did help you get a better understanding of IELTS, how it works, what it's used for, and some of the requirements. Now, as always, if you are looking for more information on entry requirements to schools or English courses, or even if you need to take IELTS, please never hesitate to contact the team at Pathway to Oz on Facebook, website, email, or by phone. Thanks.